In an era when the scientific world was shrouded in pipe smoke and dominated by dark suits, there lived a slender woman wandering alone in remote cornfields. Her name was Barbara McClintock. She was once regarded as an outcast, even a madwoman in her field. She claimed to have seen genes leaping like musical notes along chromosomes, yet the world at the time firmly believed genes were fixed and immovable. Such unconventional views turned her into a lonely island isolated on the map of science for a very long time. Tonight, let us sit by the softly flickering fireplace and walk quietly into her life through this gentle story that lingers softly in the mind. At the age of 81, a phone call arrived 30 years too late. When the spotlight of the Nobel Prize tried to shine upon her, she only smiled faintly and turned back to her cornfields. Behind this timeless calm lies an untold tide of fate. The crack in her destiny was sealed the moment she stepped onto the campus of Cornell University. It was an age when women were expected to confine themselves to family and the kitchen, but Barbara fell deeply in love with the miniature, magnificent world beneath the microscope. She cared nothing for social gatherings and avoided fancy dresses entirely. She always wore loose work clothes with her hair cut short. While other young women chatted about dances and social engagements, she immersed herself in the shifting colors of corn cells. The scientific community back then stood like a solemn fortress. Though she earned her doctoral degree as a woman, she was denied a formal teaching position. She traveled restlessly, moving between laboratories like a migrating bird. The bitterness of being excluded by mainstream academia never dimmed her spirit. Instead, it made her see the truth clearly. If the world would not offer her a place, she would build one of her own. Fate led her to Cold Spring Harbor, a quiet remote haven where she could settle her loneliness. There, she began decades of relentless corn experiments. She did not merely observe seeds, she held a silent dialogue with nature that only she could understand. She noticed the colors on corn kernels were never random, but followed a mysterious hidden rhythm. Through thousands of crossbreeding trials and microscopic observations, she made an astonishing discovery. Genes were not fixed like pearls strung on a necklace. They shifted positions, alive and capable of leaping. In 1951, she stepped onto the podium with a discovery profound enough to rewrite the history of life science. Facing her were the most distinguished biologists of the time. Yet instead of applause, she was met with dead silence and undisguised mockery. Male scientists exchanged disdainful glances, dismissing this single woman as lost in absurd fantasy. The afternoon sunlight was harsh and glaring, and standing on that stage, Barbara felt a coldness deeper than winter. After that devastating academic lecture, Barbara made a decision that shocked everyone. She would no longer publish any research on jumping genes. It was not surrender. She simply understood that in her time, the voice of truth was too weak to break through the thick walls of prejudice. For the next 30 years, she vanished entirely from public view. She refused academic conferences and would not argue with arrogant peers. Each dawn, she walked into her cornfields, sowing in spring and harvesting in autumn. Like a spiritual practitioner, she searched for life's ultimate answers amid quiet farm rows. She grew quieter yet freer. Free from tidal pressures and public opinion interference, she entered an almost meditative state of research. She could distinguish subtle differences between every corn plant. In those quiet fields, she was never truly alone. She was accompanied by countless vivid, leaping genes. Those were her loneliest years, yet also her most abundant. Time moved slowly yet fairly, always allowing truth to surface eventually. By the 1970s, with the advancement of molecular biology, scientists discovered similar gene-jumping phenomena in bacteria, fruit flies, and even humans. Only then did the world realize that decades earlier, one woman had already seen it all. Those who once mocked her had grown old and gray. They revisited Barbara's old notes, and found her data astonishingly precise. What was once dismissed as heresy became fundamental content in biology textbooks. Academic doors once closed tightly to her swung wide open one after another. By then, however, Barbara no longer craved worldly recognition. When the Nobel Committee called, she was simply walking out to buy a morning newspaper. She listened calmly to their excited announcement, gave a quiet thank you, then went to buy her newspaper and milk. The pain of being overlooked for most of her life never turned into triumphant satisfaction. Instead, it settled into a gentle yet unbreakable inner strength. In her final years, Barbara remained at Cold Spring Harbor, staying in her modest laboratory beside her microscope. She never married and had no children. Her entire life merged into those colorful corn kernels she studied. We often think of loneliness as a punishment, but Barbara McClintock showed us another meaning of solitude, a noble privilege of walking alongside truth. With a lifetime of silence, she stood against the noise of her era. She proved that even if the whole world turns away from you, holding fast to truth means you are never a failure. The story has come to an end. Imagine the evening wind sweeping across the cornfields of Cold Spring Harbor, rustling softly in the leaves. The elderly scholar turns off the lamp by her microscope and quietly locks the laboratory door. Let this peace and calm settle in your heart as you drift gently into sleep. Good night.